and welcome to my channel. Today I am making some natural inks, so I hope you'll come along. It's a little bit long, but I think you'll find it very informative. If you're not a subscriber to my channel and you like art videos and art experimentation, consider subscribing. And if you hit the little bell, you will be notified whenever I upload new videos. Today I am part of 4th Art Saturday open collaboration with APG Jamie's channel. The theme of the collaboration is formula. So what did formula mean to me? Well, according to definition.com, formula and recipe are both pretty similar by definition. For the purpose of this demo, they can be interchangeable. So this demo is combining still photos and videos because I'm cooking in my kitchen just with my iPad on top of a box. So we'll see how this goes. Before we get started, I wanted to mention a couple of books. I have an excellent book by Jason Logan that covers lots of aspects about foraging and making natural inks. It goes in depth quite a bit with a lot of information. So I would highly recommend that one. And another one that looks good, but I don't own it yet, is by Babs Bayan. That one has more simplified recipes, so I think I'd like to buy that one too. There are lots of ways and methods shown in other videos on YouTube, so keep in mind that this is my way of doing things, and I'm just following basic and good practices. There's no guarantee of successful outcomes here, and sometimes you get great surprises. So the first thing you'll do is gather all your supplies. Here's a still photo of a lot of what you'll be using. Some are optional. These are your cooking supplies. Everything is listed in the description box below, so if you don't catch it here, you can always refer to it back there. Some filtering and bottling supplies, and that's it. I test with just scraps of watercolor paper as I'm cooking to test the strength of the ink as I go. So I've, dipped the paper in at 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, 30, and then finally 40. And you can see how the intensity of the ink changes. And this is dipped right into the cooking pot, so there are solids in there. The spinach, however, is not progressing as well. Sorry, I'm holding my camera with my hands here, by hand, not good. Anyway, here's the spinach at 5 minutes, 15, 30, and I still wasn't getting very much color at 40. So I added 1 ml of Noodler's Apache fountain pen ink, which is kind of a really intense yellow. But since it was diluted so much, it just kind of brought the color up to a kind of a dull olive green, which I'm okay with. There are a lot of spinach solids in that last one because a lot of it stuck to my paper, but I don't even mind that. I kind of like that. So if you want to check on your progress as you're going, that's a real easy way to do it, and then you can just, as they dry, you can just mark the amount of time. Okay, here we can see that the blueberry ink is just about done. I took the strainer off and got rid of most of the solids that weren't moving through anymore. So this is what's left in the coffee filter, which the filter is very pretty. You can dry that and use it for collage or whatever. It's dripping pretty slowly, so I'm gonna say it's done. I think there's enough in there to fill one of my the little medicine bottle here that I have labeled. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll move on to the spinach. Okay, I'm just going to fill my bottle from my filtered ink that I just filtered into this glass. and it was double filtered. Remember, I put a coffee filter in the glass first, and then the little strainer went on top of the coffee filter. So excuse my camera skills. I'm not used to working like this in my kitchen, but I'm just using this disposable pipette. You can also use a little funnel if you're good at pouring. I will pour using these little funnels, which by the way come with these dropper bottles. I'll put a link in the description. So you get 3 of these, which was nice. If it had like a little pouring lip, then I would probably pour it through the funnel, but since it doesn't, and I don't want to waste it or stain up my noodle board here, I'm just going to use the pipette and just transfer it. This one, anything that I make with food ingredients, sorry, that's my microwave. Anything I make with food ingredients, I usually keep the bottled inks in the refrigerator. Things that I make with dried ingredients like bark or acorns, that kind of thing, I'll keep the extra in the refrigerator, but I can keep a jar that I'm currently using the ink out of, you know, just in my art cart with my other inks. Seems to be okay so far. When I'm done decanting this, I will add 2 or 3 cloves, just, you know, regular spice cloves. They act as a natural preservative, so it'll prevent mold and nasty stuff from growing in your ink. Tip this. So I started with about 3/4 of a cup of blueberries, and as you can see, I ended up with a full bottle of ink. The recipe that I have called for 2 cups of blueberries, but I knew that I wasn't going to use that many blueberries. I mean, that much ink that 2 cups of blueberries would make. So 3/4 of a cup with the smashed up blueberries, and I didn't end up adding any more water in the cooking process. Sometimes if it cooks down enough, like the spinach is doing right now, the spinach is, because I only used, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of a cup. Hang on. I only used about 1/8 of a cup of spinach because I just wasn't sure. I've not used spinach before. I just wasn't sure what kind of color I was going to get, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes. I forgot to put the cloves in here. So I just have some cloves here, just regular cloves you get from the grocery store, and I'm just going to put like 3 cloves in here, and I find that's just enough for that amount of ink. Give it a little swirl, and that one's ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to check on the spinach, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I thought while I'm waiting for the spinach to cook down a little bit more, I'd show you how I do the filtering, how I get ready to do the filtering. So I just have a regular, you know, one of those round fluted coffee filters. I have a bunch, and I don't have a coffee pot they fit in anymore. The triangular, like the more cone filters, really work better. But if you fold this filter in 4ths and then put 3 sides on one side, 3 plies are going to be on this side, you make a cone. Okay, then I put it in the jar and just fold it over the lip. just like that. So there you have your filter. And then I put my little fine sieve filter right inside of there. So fortunately my sieve fit in my jar and all is well. For this size sieve, I don't know how big it is, but it doesn't fit into a mason jar very well. Maybe a real wide mouth one, but this is just a candle jar. I don't even know where it came from. I just save all my candle jars. I burn a lot of candles and jars just come in handy. This one didn't have or I don't know where the lid was, but fortunately for this I don't need a lid. So that's basically how I get ready to strain my ink. Okay, here's the spinach. So far we're at about 50 minutes, I would guess. Like I said, I added that ink to it, but you can see the liquid is just kind of a brownish green. We're getting steam on the camera. It's not real intense of a color, so I'm going to let it go for another 10 minutes and then I'll just take it off the heat, let it cool like I did with the blueberries, let the mixture cool, and then I pour it into an empty candle jar to cool down completely, and then I can pour from the candle jar into my filtering glass. So I'm going to let this go for a little bit longer. Okay, it's been about an hour for this spinach on the stove. I'm just going to go ahead and pour this through. Normally, oh, there's more color there than I thought. Normally I would decant this into another container to cool, but I'm in kind of a hurry, so I'm skipping the cooling step and going straight to, and just make sure that the jar that you're decanting in isn't going to break under the heat. I figured this was a candle jar. They poured hot paraffin in it, and then I lit it on fire for several days in a row, so I figured that was safe. You can push your pulp down a little bit, get it dripping. This one's going through pretty fast. The blueberry, I will tell you, took a very long time, at least an hour to an hour and a half to completely filter through, and it's thick, which I like because it's more paint-like, more like the consistency of like an acrylic ink. But you can thicken your inks. Let me put this pan down. If you put some gum arabic, which is used to thicken watercolors, but if you stir that into your ink, it will thicken it a little bit, and just add little bits at a time and mix it in really well. You might want to use a little whisk. I don't know if I have one here, like one of these little sauce whisks to whisk it up, because it has a tendency to clump. Or you could probably mix it in a little bit of hot water. All this needs to be verified because I'm not really remembering what I did when I did my inks before, because I didn't use it in all of them. I used it in my alcohol, or in my acorn ink. Speaking of alcohol, you can also use these inks if you fill your medicine bottle with like half ink and half 91% alcohol and let it sit for a few days. You have alcohol ink. So there's another, use or excuse for making your own ink. So I'm just going to let this finish filtering through. I'll put it in another little ink bottle like that and label it. Make sure you put the date on your bottles. Like, I'll even put a little bit of like, what did I do on this blueberry ink? I said, put 40 minutes is how long it took for me to cook it. and then that I filtered it twice, meaning once through the sieve and once through the coffee filter. And then of course what it is. This is totally experimental. Sometimes things work out the way you want them to, other times they don't. Sort of like when you paint with watercolors, you know, it's going to do what it's going to do, and there's only so much that you can do to affect that. The vinegar is what helps bring the color out. So when you're cooking, you're going to add your vinegar to your cooking liquid, and that will help coax more of the color out. Add some salt, and that's kind of a stabilizer. And then cook with that, and then after the cooking process is over and things have cooled down, that's when you can add your gum arabic, if you choose to do that, if you want to make it thicker. And there's a ton of recipes online. There's a lot of videos about doing this. This is just the way I do it, but I would encourage you, you know, find some more videos and find what you feel works best for you. I like to do just small batches. You know, this one bottle, it's going to last me a while. I don't exclusively work with, you know, these natural inks. So, oh, and I should tell you, I should probably told you in the beginning, maybe I did. These inks are very fugitive. Don't expect to create a fabulous masterpiece with these inks and 6 months from now have them look the same way. Most of them are going to fade. So just so you know, they're fun and it's interesting and experimental, something to do with, you know, natural ingredients. You can try to fix them a little bit more with like a Spectra Fix spray fixative, like you would use on maybe a charcoal painting. Something like that to help kind of seal the color in. But even so, there's no guarantee they're going to last forever. And they're, you know, just know that going in. Just do it to have something to play with and to have fun and see what happens. So I'm going to finish this spinach one, and then I'll show you all the inks that I've done so far and what they look like, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, well, my spinach juice is cooling off a little bit more. I'm going to mix up some gum arabic. It comes in two forms, liquid or the powdered crystals. It's actually not crystals, it's crystals, but it's ground to a really fine powder, about like flour. So about a teaspoon, and then I'm going to take this to the sink and run my water as hot as it will go and add some water. So I'm going to do that. Hang on. Okay, you can see I put about that much water, and I'm going to take my little whisk and whisk it until I don't have any clumps or powder left, which takes a little bit. Some people say to use boiling water, but from what I've read, if it gets too hot, it will affect the binding properties. This is basically a binder and thickening agent, so it will help bind the ink to the paper. If you use it like with a calligraphy pen, it will help prevent bleeding out from your ink lines. So I'm just going to continue to do this. I'm going to add it to this, and it'll have to sit for a while before we know if it was enough to thicken it. If not, we'll just do this again and add some more. I still see a couple clumps in there. And I'll take this opportunity to mention that any utensils or pots or jars or, you know, whatever that you use, spoons, for ink making, get yourself like a little tote or something and keep everything together, and don't ever use those things for food again, because I mean, with the blueberries, it was just blueberries and vinegar and salt. So that wouldn't hurt anything. But if you're adding gum arabic like this, you're using this little thing, use this little whiskey thing only for ink making after this. Don't. It's got kind of foamy. I don't see any more clumps, so that's good. What I do, and I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but like all my utensils and pots and pans and jars and whatnot, I rinse them in the, I clean them in the dishwasher, just in a load by themselves. That way I know everything is sort of sterilized and really clean for the next time I go about doing this. And then when everything's dry, I put it in a small tote and put the lid on it, and everything stays clean and together, because there is quite a bit of gathering of supplies, as I think you've seen throughout this video. So that's my suggestion for that. Okay, I'm going to pour this in there. Now, if I'm remembering right, a teaspoon of gum arabic is enough to thicken 2 ounces. I may have more than 2 ounces in there, but like I said, you can always add more. And I'm not too worried. This is a color that's light enough that I would not use it with a fountain or a nib pen like this one. I don't think I would use it. It's too light. So I'm just going to add it to my swatch card right now. As it sits there, it will, hopefully it'll thicken up a little bit more. And then I will put it into my little bottle that I've already labeled. So let me get this on my swatch card and we'll let that dry, and then I'm going to show you swatches of the inks that I've made. So here are the inks that I've made recently. The turmeric ink, you can just get the powdered spice from the grocery store, and I just kind of eyeballed it and dumped maybe 2 tablespoons of turmeric into about a half a cup of hot water, whisked it up, and then just let it sit for a few hours. Every once in a while I'd come back and you know, mix it up again and then put it in my bottle. The red cabbage, I will show you how I did this one. Hang on 1 second. There are recipes for cooked red cabbage ink. What I did was I took one of these little ball jars and just chopped it up really, really finely, added the salt and vinegar. I put the red cabbage in, pressed it down really well to the bottom of the jar, added the salt and vinegar and a little bit of water, and just stuck it in the fridge and let it sit for about 3 days. And voila. I'm sure you probably get a more intense ink by cooking the red cabbage, but this is the ink that came from that. You can see the cloves in there. And then this was the blueberry that we made today. And this is the spinach one that we made today. And I actually ended up getting 2 bottles out of that. I think with the second bottle, I may dump maybe some of this out and experiment with mixing colors together. Maybe I'll put some of the blueberry in here and see if I can get a green. So I did sample for you. You can see this, the red cabbage starting at the top left. The red cabbage, contrary to what you might think, it doesn't stay pink. When you put it on paper and let it dry, it's a very pretty blue color. The turmeric, kind of just a pale yellow. I'm sure the more spice you add, the darker the yellow will be. I mean, if you've ever cooked with it, you know how staining it can be. And then the blueberry, I got a really nice, intense, almost a Payne's gray color, which I really, really like. And then the avocado and acorn ink here on the bottom, I made like 2.5 years ago, October of 2020. That's been in my fridge. And the acorn ink just intensifies the longer it sits. I don't know if you can see like the solids that are in there though. I really love that. And then the last one is the spinach. The light's kind of shining through the paper here. It's not showing the color really great. It's kind of a greenish yellow, which I like. I did add the Noodler's Apache ink to it, remember? So that intensified the color a little bit. So that's what we got. I like to just play as I go. This was a test sheet when I did the turmeric and the red cabbage, and I marked, you know, that it changed from pink to blue. When it goes down on the paper, it's pink, but you can see it almost immediately start changing. And then there are set places, I'm not used to doing this without my camera overhead, places where I let the two run together. I don't know if you can see the little brown spots. I'll post some still pictures you can see better. Then this is the red cabbage with the turmeric mixed in, which is quite pretty. And then today, as I was doing the blueberry, this top one here that I'm showing you is right out of the pot. I was just testing the color. Let's see if I can get this to focus a little better. I was just testing the color out of, you know, as it was cooking in the pot. So there are solids in there, which again, I kind of like that. And then after the first filtering, so I lifted up the sieve and just dipped my brush into what was in the coffee filter before it went through the filter. And that's what I got from there. So it's, you can see the difference in even the, like the hue. This top one is much bluer where the bottom one is more purple. So it's just fun to play and experiment and, you know, see what happens. Like I said, there's no guarantee that it's going to be good or bad or whatever. Sorry about that. And then I just have this little like Tupperware Rubbermaid container to make it easy. I can just stick these in here. I have a half a shelf in my refrigerator dedicated to ink. For better or for worse, that's what I have. So it just keeps everything, you know, contained, and I can pull it out and use what I need and put it back. So one more that I have in progress that I wanted to show you. This is going to be a copper oxide ink, but it takes about 3 weeks. I just started this 4 days ago, but inside there is copper wire, pieces of copper pipe, some pennies, just I think a couple of copper washers or bolts or something. So you put it in, cover it with vinegar just so that everything is underneath vinegar, and let it sit somewhere where, you know, you're not smelling up your house with vinegar, but you leave it open to the air. And like twice a day, I just have a skewer, so twice a day I put it where I can see it so I don't forget to do this. But you just stir it up a bit, and the copper pieces start to oxidize, and it doesn't look like much right now. It's just starting to turn, but you get the most gorgeous blue, and it will separate. The oxidized particles will go to the bottom. Obviously, you're going to take everything, all this junk out of it and put it into a clean container. But you know it's done when you see the oxidized layer at the bottom. It will be this real soft, beautiful turquoise color. and then the liquid above the precipitate will be just a clear sky blue color. So you can decant it any way you want. If you just want to retain the clear, you can take it out with a pipette carefully, put it in a little bottle, save some of it and shake it up with the precipitate, and you get a totally different, beautiful turquoise blue color, chalky looking color from the oxidized part of it. So at some point along the line, I will show you this when it's ready, but it's going to be a while. But I wanted to mention it, and I have one more going there. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Come back soon. In the meantime, go make some art. Bye.